Hi yogis, I'm Laura. We're going to be working on our third yoga board for the yoga kleshas. And the yoga kleshas are obstacles to happiness. They're the places where we get stuck. They are the sources of different suffering that we encounter during our life. And the third one of the kleshas is called Raga. So Raga means attachment to pleasure or seeking pleasure. This is somewhere that a lot of us tend to encounter suffering. We all have this idea of what we want our life to look like, or what we want a certain experience to be like. We want it to go well, we want it to be good, we want it to be fun, we want it to be pleasurable. But a lot of the times, things don't turn out exactly the way that we wanted to. And that difference between what we wanted and the actual experience can cause suffering. It's very much the attachment to the outcome of things or the experience of things. We get fixated on wanting to go to a certain place because we feel like it will be better, or eating a certain food because we think it's going to be enjoyable to eat that food. And a lot of times those things probably are something that you enjoy, but we can get to this point where we build things up a lot in our head and we want it to be a certain way. That includes like being in a relationship with someone. Maybe you're single and you have this attachment to getting into a relationship, and you feel like once that happens, things are going to be great and you're going to enjoy that. But the reality of it is that there's ups and downs and there's challenging points in that, and it's not all just fun. There's a lot of work that has to be done with it. So this attachment to seeking pleasurable experiences. And you're going to notice that this klesha and the next klesha are really two sides of the same coin. They're opposites. So Raga is seeking pleasurable things. It's attachment to things that you want or things that you like. And then the next week we're going to talk about aversion. It's the things that we push away, that we don't want to bring into our life. It's the same kind of idea from a different perspective. The things that we pull toward us, the things that we push away from ourselves. But both of those aspects are going to cause us suffering because we feel like we're trying to control the situation. We feel like by whatever we want to happen, we can draw the good things into our life. And whatever we don't want to happen, we can take action to avoid that or push it away. And that's not always the case. We don't always have control about the way that things unfold and the way that things happen. So a lot of the work that we do for these two kleshas is to be able to put forth effort and do all of the things that you would normally do in a given situation, but let go of the attachment to the outcome. Okay, so I'll give you an example of going to the gym, and say it's still January, so a lot of people are probably doing their New Year's resolution thing where they want to lose weight or they want to get in shape. And the end goal might be a certain body weight. A lot of people want to hit their goal body weight. So they have this attachment to weighing X number of pounds, and they're going to the gym a few days a week, they're working out, they're doing strength training, hopefully they throw some yoga in there too. But they're doing this whole program, and maybe they're really enjoying it, getting active, being out there, moving their body. It feels really good. And for the whole month of January, they're doing this whole program, and then they get to the end and they weigh themselves, and they're not at their goal weight. And it's just this suffering that happens because of the attachment to the outcome. Even though they were really enjoying that process of moving and getting active and feeling better and probably looking better because they were active, because they didn't hit that goal weight, it causes them this suffering that they feel like they failed in reaching their goal. So a lot of what we try to emphasize in yoga is that focus on the journey, right? We want to enjoy the process of moving our body and exercising and putting forth just as much effort as if you were trying to move toward a goal. But whether you hit that goal or not isn't really what you're going for. It's the process of moving in that direction. Don't be so fixated on the goal. And I'll give you a yoga example. A lot of people have a goal pose, and it might be handstand or headstand. And there's a lot of prep work involved in being able to get to a handstand. You have to do a lot of stabilization through the arms, through the upper back, through the core. There needs to be a certain amount of flexibility to get yourself into the preparation position to go up into a handstand. And say that you spend many months working on all of that, but after those months you're still struggling with your handstand and you feel unsuccessful because you were seeking the pleasurable experience of being able to do that flashy pose, being able to do a handstand in the middle of the room. Even though all of that work that you did to get toward that point was completely valid, you did so much work to understand the complexity of your shoulder and how to stabilize it, how to work your core and fire up those muscles, how to create a stronger connection between your mind and those muscles. But just because you didn't hit that end pleasurable goal of being able to do that handstand, it creates suffering because you're so attached to that final product. So even if you did those months of work and created strength and stability, that in itself was the gain that you made, the experience of learning all those different things. And even though you didn't do the handstand, or maybe you did do the handstand, the end result isn't the point that you want to focus on. And I think a lot of people get hung up on this because we're so used to being very goal-oriented and very focused on the end result of doing something. We can suffer through weeks and weeks and weeks of difficulty if that end result is going to be what we want and it's going to be pleasurable. But this is about trying to enjoy the process more than the end result. But let's get back into exactly the inner workings of Raga and how that kind of turns up in our practice. Now, you're going to have certain poses that you like to do. We have poses that we're attached to. If you're doing your home practice, these are the poses that you probably gravitate toward putting into your home practice when you're in charge of creating that flow. It might be downward facing dog, it might be some warrior poses, whatever you feel like you're really good at doing and feel really good in your body. You have an attachment to those poses. Okay? And then there's the other side, which we'll talk about with the next one, the poses that you have an aversion to or like to push away. But it's anything that you can really fill in this blank of, I like warrior 2, I like pizza, I like sunny days, I like summer, all of those things that you can fill in those spaces with. Or I want a new yoga mat, I want a new shirt, or I want to go out to lunch, or I hope that I get hired at this new job. I hope that I get to see so-and-so over the weekend. Okay, so you're seeking these experiences that you feel like are going to be pleasurable. You're chasing toward them, and in that process, probably missing the journey of what's actually getting you there because you're so attached to the end result. But the way that we integrate and kind of move past raga or attachment to pleasure is we understand the natural flow that happens and the way that we resist the natural flow. Okay, so in life, there is this up and down. I like the concept of thinking about things coming together and things falling apart. Things coming together, things moving apart. There's this constant flow of that happening. It's like the wave moving up onto the shore and then receding. Our life is usually in one of those stages of coming together or moving apart. And when we resist that natural flow, we have suffering. So we might be stuck on the high points, that we always want to stay in that place of being happy, everything is great, things are pleasurable, and that's raga. Or when we're trying to push away and avoid that downswing of life, that's going to be our next Klesha. But always trying to stay in the upward swing of that natural flow is where we're going to have suffering, because we know that can't happen. We have to recognize the fact that there's always going to be that up and down, and it's part of the natural process. So we train ourselves to be able to make the transition from something that's pleasurable to something that's a little bit uncomfortable or undesirable. The way that I like to think about this in yoga practice are hip openers. If you have tight hips, being in a hip opener for a long time is quite a strong sensation. It's quite uncomfortable. Not to the level of pain, of course, but its strong sense of opening in the hips can be difficult to settle with. And a lot of times you'll have that feeling of, let me just get out of this pose because this isn't comfortable and I want to do a pose that just feels good. But we know that the end result of doing hip openers and getting through that difficulty is going to be greater freedom of movement in the hips. So we want to use the journey in the pose just as well as the end result as all being part of that process. Being able to stay in that hip opener, to keep your breath smooth, to focus on that strong sensation and notice that it's there, but not move into that space of judgment or suffering, just allowing yourself to be with it and experience it as part of that up and down of your practice. That's the work that there is to do in all of this. That's what we want to draw onto our mat so that we can recognize when that happens in the rest of our life. We can't always stay at the weekend, right? So Saturday and Sunday, if you're off work and you're doing things and you get to sleep late and it's fun, you get to go out and do activities. And then during the week, you have to go back into your normal work routine and your schedule. And that's a little bit more restrictive. So we have this back and forth where on Sunday night, a lot of people are like, the weekend's over. I have to go back to work. So there's this element of suffering that the pleasurable part of the week is over and now the working part of the week begins. So we want to watch that process, or whatever your process tends to be when you're transitioning from things. For me, it is at the end of vacation. If I've been traveling and my trip is over and I have to go back into normal life, there's always this bit of discomfort and suffering that I experience at that point, because that pleasurable experience that I had been looking forward to for so long is over, and now I go back into the normal day-to-day. So watch for that at different points during your life. The practice that we're going to do, like I said, is going to be hip opening, hamstring opening, because it helps with the whole movement of that area, and some breath retention, kumbhaka. It's a way to work on pausing, being with a slightly uncomfortable feeling, and delaying gratification, being able to sit in that space as long as you need to, and then come out of it gracefully rather than grasping and clawing your way out of it. So I hope that you are able to join us for our hip opening practice. Namaste. Thank you for watching.